It's 6:30, so we'll begin the Board of Selectmen's meeting for Wednesday, September 2nd. You join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Due to the increasing concern surrounding the coronavirus pandemic, this meeting will remain closed to the public. There are no scheduled public hearings and there will be no public comment period. Live video and audio of the meeting will be aired on Comcast Local Channel 9. A recording of the meeting will also be posted on the West Bridgewater YouTube channel. At this moment, I'd like to ask everyone to join us in a moment of silence on behalf of Catherine Lucini. Catherine Lucini passed away within the past couple of weeks, and she was the current holder of our Boston Post cane. She was 97 years old. Thank you. Okay, at 6:30 we have Bartolo Development LLC presentation. Are they present?
They are. So, so Rich Hartline represents Bartolo Properties. I've been meeting with him now for a good portion of this year, along with Chairman of the Planning Board Hugh Hurley and Chairman of the Zoning Board of Appeals Bill Lucini. And Mr. Hartline is with us now. He has a full presentation, and he is going to make his presentation. And then at the end of the presentation, you're going to ask obviously questions and hopefully get all good answers. And then from there, if you're in favor of his project going forward, we would then look at holding a special town meeting, because he would need zoning relief by amending from business zoning to industrial zoning to allow his development.
Okay.
So,
and who else do we have present on the call? There is one phone line that's just two phone lines that are just a phone number. I can't tell who they are.
Hi, one of those phone lines is Paul D'Angelo, 781-718-6001. I could not tie in on my iPad, so I called in.
And then this is Rich Hartline with the Bartolo Development. Can you see me? Because I'm showing up. I don't know if I have a little problem, but am I showing up visually?
yes.
Okay. So yeah, I'm logged in online, but I decided to call in because I've had some problems with my computer microphone. So I'm connected on a call-in, and that's why you see that other number. And in addition to Paul D'Angelo, our team, we have Jeff Bandini with our traffic consultant who produced the traffic study that was submitted to the town last month, or in July, I believe. And then that's everybody that's joining remotely.
Thank you. Okay, so would you like to proceed with explaining the project to us?
Well, yes, I think the letter that's being shown on the TV right now is a technical letter in writing just pointing out our request for the land that's currently under a purchase and sale agreement with the Haciendas family to change the zoning from a full business B to industrial I. And the presentation itself will walk through the details and plans for the development. And if Lauren, if you're just going to scroll like this, it's perfect. So thank you to the board for taking the time to hear out our interest in developing in West Bridgewater. Also to Dave Gagne, Bill Lucini, and Hugh Hurley for all their assistance in educating me over, surprisingly now, almost 2+ years of talking about this opportunity since we first showed up to do some industrial in the South Boston market, greater market. So a little bit about the Bartolo development. The next slide just outlines it. the family that I work for has been in the public limelight doing commercial real estate development for over 70 years, going on 80 years now. And they were part of the original innovators of the shopping center, the regional mall. And as it's outlined in slide 1, that type of legacy of growth and leadership also extended to my current boss, Mr. D. Jr., who was successful in winning Super Bowls with the 49ers back in the 80s and early 90s. What the Bartolo development is today is a private family development firm with a big name and history. We are developing from literally the east coast of our mainland country out into Hawaii for all types of commercial asset classes. We develop shopping centers, mixed-use centers inclusive of hospitality, standalone hotels, industrial, as is being proposed this evening in West Bridgewater, along with a little bit of retail, and everything in between, the condominiums, even single-family home developments here and there. But our primary focus is to make developments that are institutional quality, and the definition of institutional quality is that confusing language. It's a certain size and scale of project that is the best in class in its asset class, and is also of a scale that is interested to the institutional investors and buyers throughout the United States, whether it be funds that are like Prudential, BlackRock, or those types of people. So when we put our full force effort into a project, it is not for little tiny projects that are lower quality or lower scale investment. You can keep rolling, Lauren, thank you. The current project, and I'll get into the next slide, which has the general site plan on it, for the 72 acres is almost a carbon copy of what we just finished developing in the adjacent city of Bridgewater, town of Bridgewater, which is the best-in-class industrial space. And I think some people get confused when we say industrial. These new modern warehouses are state-of-the-art compared to what the 50s, 60s, or even earlier facilities that you might be familiar with. What goes on within these four walls, and we do not have a specific tenant in mind for this project as of today, it's as diverse as the names that you see on the stock market, NASDAQ, and really what you see coming in and out of most homes today. The Amazon delivery systems, even, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, bottling systems, FedEx, UPS. These facilities, while simple in approach in four walls and a roof, really can house anything from 20 to 40 miles of conveyor systems and full robotics to even what we're seeing recently in Greater Boston is biomedical needs, pharmaceutical manufacturing, PP&E manufacturing, and prep warehouse and distribution. So these are very sophisticated tenants that typically come into these higher class projects, and the amount of jobs that are created and things that come out of these is a lot higher than other uses that people are used to. This project, based on the limitations, I'll get a little in that slide for now, has a lot of known and delineated wetlands. So when we're talking about developing 72 acres of Hacienda's land, quite frankly, it's about 50 acres or even a little less that's truly upland development. So under our concept site plan, and as a lot of you on this call may know, we have to work backwards after, looking at an opportunity. We find out more about not just the wetlands and the setbacks requirements and all the zoning things and planning requirements within a municipality like the West Bridgewater. We're also trying to figure out what's happening underneath the ground, the soils. So, one of the things that drew us into this region to do in Class A industrial is a limitation and scarcity of developable land. This one is truly a jigsaw puzzle because of the wetlands that were delineated, as well as the soil conditions out there. And we're still truly understanding and investigating what's going on down here. questions and answer. We'll come back to the slide, Lorna. But ultimately, what we have here by nature and not by, plan, is we have a fairly large setback from the highway with the wetlands, which we'll get to the next page on, and it's also set back from some of the homesteads that abut Lincoln Street. And if you look at this plan here, part of the work that we've been doing together with our consultants team in Massachusetts is trying to figure out if we could develop anything on this site. So we're happy to say on July 7th, we got ANRAD confirmation approval of the delineated wetlands and the setback requirements. So nothing in our master plan is asking for variances, variations, or anything environmentally sensitive. And there's two sets of wetland lines on this site, and as what that's doing is forcing the larger industrial building to be shielded both from the tree lines along Lincoln Street and set back from the houses, as well as buffered back from the highway, creating a natural buffer to the trees that are out there. So, like anybody, we want to maximize any type of land, because land is scarce. But the wetland delineations and setbacks on this property, which have been affirmed July 7th, really created this natural tree buffer and setbacks from other existing property owners. You can keep moving. The next slide is really, we borrowed it from our development and our team that works on the Bridgewater site. I think there's a few roads that don't run directly through West Bridgewater, so I apologize for any lack of accuracy on a couple of the highways, but we could throw one more in there. But what's really interesting about West Bridgewater and the South Market, as it's called, is what you see on this page. It's probably by nature in the top 10 or 15 or 20 markets for industrial Class A space in the country. It doesn't exist, even though this is such an amazing town and an overall MSA. So what West Bridgewater has is a couple things. It has access to the outer network. It's very easy, without any major problems on the highway going in and out during rush hour. It has amazing access to over 50% of the population of Massachusetts. It also has a lot of homes and a lot of good employment base nearby, and that is what a lot of these tenants are looking for. And so we're really excited. Work hand in hand with your neighbors in Bridgewater on this, and what we see at the West Bridgewater site is something that's even more exciting because of its direct access, 106 out to 24. You can go to the next slide. One of the things when I first met, in fact, the singular thing when I first met with some of the people on this call was, we really have a traffic problem on 106. And, I said, of course, you don't have to tell me about it. I almost took my life in my hands to pick up donuts over at the Honeydew every time I had meetings down there. So I can save questions to the end. I'll get through all of this, but Nandini can definitely speak to the technical aspects of the challenging road conditions that exist today without any additional development. What was near and dear to everybody's heart to make this even presentation was, Rich, can you figure out how to fix the roadways? So through the traffic impact study, working with good groups like McMahon, as well as our local civil engineer, which is based in Bridgewater, we came up with a solution that required the Bartolo to go out and procure and tie up or purchase additional land. So Mr. Dempsey, through the assistance of Paul D'Angelo on the call, was willing to sell his property, and we set forth a significant amount of effort to try to fix that intersection, because it really is a number of roads come together, as you know, and creates a logjam. And that's got nothing to do with the quantity of people driving it. It's just a very bad confluence of a number of streets. So with Crescent Street, Lincoln Street being realigned, which you'll see in the map coming up, all of the stuff started to fall into place. So we really have spent a lot of time trying to approach an existing problem by utilizing our development as a way to help come and fix that. And, between the traffic study that's been submitted, the plan that we're about to discuss briefly here, and, what I think is a really good approach by the town of West Bridgewater to go to MassWorks to try to get state funding for this infrastructure. As Jeff's team has produced and proven to us, because they've worked with many municipalities like the town of West Bridgewater, this checks all the boxes for MassWorks. They're looking for unlocking potential development, new jobs, new economic income for the state and the city, in this case the town, and also fixing traffic problems. They don't want just someone to repave the roads and put nice trees on it. So there's a real existing problem, as everybody knows, and we found a solution. And with Dave's help, and TEC's help, we found a pathway to potentially have this funded through MassWorks. So I'll briefly touch on this. I know, again, traffic is a big concern with existing residents. The new realignment is not tricky. What we've really done through purchasing the land is created a fairly traditional four-way intersection, and then allowed Jeff's team to look at, well, what would, if I was involved in the town planning, what could we do and how wide can we go with existing right-of-ways and all of that. So in short, the realignment is 100% a safer interchange, but everything on the south side of 106 really doesn't have any infrastructure. There's no sidewalks. There's really no way to kind of get down there and even walk in front of Mr. Dempsey's retail facility. So what we're showing here is something that is not very difficult to implement. I say that, but you have to get into utility companies and deal with all those people. We were also approached early on in our process by the owners of the Shell station there on the left side of the plant. They are looking to completely redo their property, bring a state-of-the-art facility to there. They're looking for us to help them cleave off some land out of our purchase to really put forth a new development there, which is exciting because they also would like to see the traffic not backed up in front of their stalls and have everything kind of flowing. So I don't want to get into the technical. I want to answer any technical questions you have. Obviously, Jeff's the engineer. But what we have here is an unclogged artery that currently is clogged, and a limited amount of traffic generated by our project against the current approved zoning and the previous approved commercial property. We have a much less impact to what is now going to be a much better intersection. So it's kind of a win-win all the way around, but it's straightforward just by getting this intersection created through the land we've secured. It's going to fix a major problem, even if ultimately the townspeople don't vote to change the zoning. This is a great first step to fixing the problems that you guys currently have. So we'll just keep rolling through. Like any project, any discussions that we have, what does this do for the town? Well, typically it goes into two basic things: jobs and tax growth. The spreadsheet that you see today is based off the current taxation records for the town of West Bridgewater, and just barely off this, maybe it's my screen at the bottom, you can see what the taxes are being paid currently on the 72 acres. So in round numbers, the town of West Bridgewater is getting in untouched about $90,000 a year in taxes. What this spreadsheet simply lays out is, depending on how much of this development, once rezoned and built, gets built, the valuations, whether through the tax authority or how much square footage we ultimately put down here and how much build out we do with our tenants, I took a conservative average of $20 million just to run the numbers. If we just built one building, these are, again, just valuation numbers. It's not the total development cost, which would include financing and engineering and architects and all of the other fun stuff. But picking these numbers, you can easily see we're talking about a 6, 7, 8, 10-fold increase straight up if I just deliver one building. If I do two buildings, or I do two buildings in the retail along 106, it just continues to escalate. But in round numbers, using the current tax code, it's a significant increase to the town of West Bridgewater. And I think the total valuation will probably go up if we're able to get the right type of buildings in, the right type of tenant, and do a significant retail project. The chart on the right of this was simply for discussion purposes, and I guess kind of good because the MassWorks the submission was $4 million as their Dave worked through it with TEC. But this was just really simply running a chart. If we were able to operate under a TIP agreement and then there's issues with that, so we have no TIP agreement working in place with the town of West Bridgewater. How quickly your investment in road improvements would be and how quickly that payback is just in this one particular project. I learned through talking with Dave that there are other projects that this is going to hopefully benefit, and obviously it's going to benefit all the people moving east, west, north, and south through Bridgewater. I want to keep going. I think, yeah. So the last slide is really simply, we're only as good as what we've done in the past and proven. And I don't need my partner Paul D'Angelo to speak on our behalf unless somebody wants to hear from him. But I met Paul because he was representing the seller in Bridgewater, and that has, just like any project, all its own challenges. And really, through just open, transparent conversations with the previous owners, which was a church who bought it from Haciendas, so it's a small world out there. We navigated how to get this done, and working with the town of Bridgewater, they did what they said they would do, and you can ask them and the manager, Mr. Dutton, we did what we were going to do. And so when you drive down there today, you have exactly what we set out to do. We have a lot of tenant interest. I will say we do not have a tenant actively in the space. We just finished the middle of last month. But we're very, very proud of Cabot Center, what it's doing, and you're only as good as your last deal. So, we're really excited to try to replicate the success in your town if you give us that chance. And at this point, I just want to hit a couple points back. So if we can just move back a little to the master site plan, I think that's the easiest one to kind of stop and start discussing maybe or answering any questions the board has. One other thing that I failed to mention is in the improvements for the intersection, we were sensitive to try to add as much pedestrian connectivity as possible. So as we don't even have sidewalks along 106, we're also showing an extension of that pedestrian-friendly intersection down Lincoln Street to at least feed the retail that's on that first third of the project. But the opportunity to extend sidewalk down Lincoln Street is made more real now with the realignment of the intersection. That's where I'll let off, and I'll just start answering questions as you see fit. Thank you.
So I think what I'd like to do, unless the board disagrees, is ask for Chris, Bill, and Hugh to have some discussion about this from their experience, so we're not duplicating any questions that might be asked. Is that okay? Everyone all right with that?
Yeah,
Okay.
that sounds good.
All right, so Chris, do you want to start?
Can you hear me now?
Now we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay. I think this is exactly what we need for the intersection. We've been talking about this for several years, and this would give us an opportunity to alleviate a left-hand turn there off of Crescent or Lincoln that is virtually impossible. By widening that out, working with Shell gas station, infrastructure, the sidewalks, I think this could be a huge improvement for that area that is in pretty tough shape right now. So that would be where I would start with it anyways. Sidewalks going down Lincoln would be huge as well, since we're going to be eventually developing a sports complex down there. I think it's important to keep the sensitivity of the neighbors, allowing them to, as you mentioned in this presentation, screening the building, if possible, to allow the area to keep that country look that it has now. I think that's very important. That's about all I have at the moment.
Thank you, Chris.
You're
Bill?
welcome.
Bill? Can't hear you.
Hear me now?
Now we
How about
can. Now we can hear you.
Okay, good. Thank you. Well, I met Rich probably about 3 years ago when I was under my project down here on Elm Street. And we met, we talked, and I thought at first it was, I still think it's a great idea, okay, for us, seeing what he did across the street from myself down here, okay? They've done everything, like he says, top notch. In fact, I believe I was the one that told them to come up to Lincoln Street. If I'm not mistaken, there's a nice piece up there you should look at after you get this done, and told them about a few of the problems with the intersection, etc. And he ran off and started doing things, and I met with him a couple of times, and then I decided we should get you and Dave involved because it was coming together quite nicely. And so they got in on the conversation, and here we are today, sitting here with this, and it sits, the identical thing sits across the street from me, and it's very, very eye-appealing, and it's not, as Rich said earlier, it just doesn't look like your standard warehouse type of a model that is out there. This is, I guess, the new type of a model according to Rich, and I see nothing but good out of this. So that's about all I got to say. And Richie does everything he says he's going to do, and that's where I am with it. So maybe you've got something you'd like to add.
Thank you. Hugh?
Okay, I know I'm not going to reiterate. I believe I agree with everything that was just said. Something's going to happen here. This thing has been kicking around for a long time, so something's going to happen. At least with this, the something that's going to happen is also going to alleviate a lot of our problems on Route 106. We're going to be able to get some financing and some help to get it done. And if you haven't seen the report from the engineer, what they're planning on doing, but it's very impressive, and I'm sure that it will help a lot. And with the athletic facility that you're going to be building down there, you have a light there so that these people, after their soccer game or baseball game or whatever, they can get on back on, like an out-of-town team come in, they're going to come in on Route 24, and they're going to want to go home when it's all said and done. And the way it is now, they couldn't make a left-hand turn out of Lincoln Street. So this is going to help that facility as well. So I think it's a win-win. We have somebody that's going to help us with our road, somebody who's going to pay us a lot of taxes, and we're going to get a nice project out of it.
Thank you. Thank you, Hugh. Okay, do you want to open it up for questions now? Anthony, Meredith?
Yeah, no, we should open it up for questions. Do I turn my mic on?
He'll get feedback. So
Okay.
what I would do is when Mary speaks, does everybody hear her okay?
Can you guys hear me?
I can hear people in the West Bridgewater too. Pretty good. Yeah.
Okay.
Would it help if I turn this, do you think?
It's not that, it's on your computer. Maybe
Oh, okay, it is on.
There was a comment that it sounded like you were saying the crosswalks or the intersection is, that's going to be changed even if we say no to this project? Did I misunderstand that?
Can
If
you
that was a
speak up?
question, if that was a question, it oscillated a little and it tailed off, and I heard something about a crosswalk.
Is the I thought someone had said the intersection is going to change even if we say no to this project, and I just wanted clarification on that.
So I think the question is, the intersection is going to change even if the project doesn't go forward? Is that the question?
Yes.
Yeah, well, based on the town, and Dave can speak to the specifics, but the slide that showed the application to MassWorks, part of the checklist to MassWorks is they want to know any economic benefit to the infrastructure request from the municipality. So this is a direct tethered project. Without the road being realigned, this project cannot move forward. I think Bill and you made that clear when I met with them early on. So if you received funding, the full amount, and proceeded through construction on the project, you would be able to do it even if the rezoning vote was not approved by the people at the end of the month. So at this point, what Dave's done at no cost to the town, other than his tireless effort, is even if the zoning, if you approve us to go to a public vote, we don't get put up, you still could get that funding and build the intersection. It's not, if you don't approve me, you won't get the funding.
That's interesting. Okay, there was mention of no TIF. Is there a certain reason there hasn't been a tax incentive?
Yes. So a number of projects we've done, well, over the years, but specifically industrial, certain towns, we have one in Moline, Massachusetts, that has a $15 million TIF. It's a village of Moline, it's not even a town. And we are used to doing a TIF, and part of the discussions early on with Dave was what I would like to have is exactly what I have on another project. The only concern, not to get too technical on the development cost side, the only concern that most people had with the Bridgewater development is the improvements were under the control of the town. And when I go to finance a project, the lenders and everybody that's, backing up and putting the money in want to eliminate any risk. And two of the investors in Elm Street saw the town's ability to perform as a potential risk. So when I started talking about this project with the team on this call, I wanted to figure out how we could do the road improvements and the town could issue a TIF and effectively pay me back over time with the new generated taxes that would be earned. The problem in the state of Massachusetts, so all good, ideas, we have to come up with new ones. TIFs within the state of Massachusetts have to be tied to an actual tenant, not the landlord, in this case the developer, and very specific guidelines on job creation, provable, if you will. So there are TIFs in Massachusetts, and I do not have a tenant that I have selected for this property yet, or else that is an option as another way to help fund road infrastructure through a reverse TIF. But we cannot do it in the state of Massachusetts like my other projects up front with the landowner. It has to have a tenant in tow. So.
Okay. There was a comment that said sidewalks would be maybe extended down Lincoln Street. So are sidewalks definitely put in, or what's the maybe?
Well, the reason I said the word maybe, it's possible. So we're not stepping outside of our four walls, in this case, the property boundaries, and putting forth design requirements or pedestrian requirements across private property. So the short answer is the road improvements themselves. You don't want to build a sidewalk to nowhere, right? So if you wanted to, or if you guys have this printed out somewhere, when you go to the road plan, you can see that our road design, preliminary, by the way, by McMahon, shows that there's a possibility to have pedestrian sidewalks fit on the south side of 106, which currently don't exist. They show those turning, and they then stop because we don't own the land past that. So, like working with any development throughout the U.S., it's planning and engineering in the town of West Bridgewater, and I think there's also a group that would be weighing in because 106 is the state highways. all of those things have to be vetted. But if the state and the town can put a sidewalk, which we think they can, on 106, it could be extended down Lincoln. And if upon a site plan approval on the land that I own is required to run a sidewalk along our property line, then we would absolutely be willing to do that. So it's not a holdback from our development. There's little pieces in between all of these pieces of property, that's all.
Okay. Are there, within the design, what is it going to look like from the outside to the residents on Lincoln Street?
Well, the best example I can say is the existing building was built on Elm Street is right up on Elm Street, okay? But it's the easiest example to use because it's literally exactly the dimensions of the largest building on the site plan, which is 1,166.5 feet by 300 feet deep, okay? But that building itself, and you get its scale when you're down there, is directly parallel and on Elm Street. When you go back to our site plan, where Elm Street building is, this building will be 3 to 4 times further back because of, if you see this right here, so the closest point of this building to Lincoln Street is going to probably be that what is this, northeast corner there. And that distance is probably 200 to, I'm just eyeballing it because the building's 300 feet deep. It's probably 150, 175 feet back. As you go further south on Lincoln Street, you'll see that the building itself is every bit of 300 to maybe even 400 feet back from Lincoln Street. And then because of wetlands and the existing tenants there, or landlords, residents in that, you can see the box to the north behind the small building. The big building itself is again set back by a good 300 to 400 feet from that. What it will look like is what I would have to go through with Hugh Hurley's team in planning. We'd have to go through and not only meet the needs of your current planning, but if there's additional plantings that need or densification and whatever's required, we have a lot of elbow room to provide more buffer. And I think natural buffer is a lot better than hard walls because they just, I don't know, walls are walls. So in this particular project, and I like to take full credit on it, but it's really the environment that created it. We were able to put a building in of the size of Elm Street, but actually buffer it by a 5-fold distance than what we currently have. And again, I think the building on Elm Street's beautiful. It's not schlocky and just thrown up. And, again, we had to go through with Jennifer Burke and their group at Bridgewater, go through all of those images and come up with something that's acceptable. So.
Yeah, I guess that's my biggest concern is what it looks like. But if we can add natural vegetation so that it's not an eyesore. I mean, we have such a charming town. I want to make sure we maintain that while making the best possible fiscal decision too.
Absolutely. And as you know, for those that know that side of the street, there are mature trees. And in these areas that you don't see touched, I mean, all of those could remain because they're beautiful. And as we get between the two entrance drives, we can deal with it. That big, not to get too much detail, but that big triangle right there is a retainage swale because of low, high groundwater. So that is going to be all green area as well. We have a little one in front of Elm Street, but and then we get forward pictures of it. But it's fully landscaped. It's not just some, and quite frankly, it probably has some water in it just because of low groundwater for most of the year. So we definitely can address that.
All right, my last question is about Route 106. It looks like I can see it coming off of Route 24. Right now, it's essentially 3 lanes that go down to 1. It's not showing right there what it's going to look like as you come off the highway. What are you expecting? How many lanes are you expecting? How is this going to increase or improve traffic flow to go from those 3 lanes to 1 or 2 or whatever this is?
So, it's not a overly technical question, but I'm gonna actually let Jeff speak, but let's go to the site plan, the road plan further south here, flip down to that, street plan. So, Jeff, I'm gonna start, and then you can talk maybe just a little, because you're the professional technical guy. What this is trying to achieve is, what this is trying to achieve is trying to get as long a two-way traffic flow as possible. Okay, there are limitations, physical limitations, the cemetery being one of them, just off screen to the left, right before you get to the northbound on-ramp. So what this design is really is 2 lanes in each direction with turning lanes, which is exponentially more volume capacity than you currently have. But as you move off this plan towards 24, I don't know if somebody needs to be muted for a minute, but the state's going to have a lot to say what can happen there. Whoever asked the question, because they control, and I read a lot about the last development goals, and because it's so close to the on and off ramps, the state of Massachusetts is going to be very specific on what can and can't happen for safety reasons that close. So, Jeff, I'll just turn it over to you and mute myself.
Sure, thanks, Rick, and thank you for the question. Thank you for the board for having me this evening. So, to answer the question, we went through, just to kind of tip off here, we went through the entire traffic study process just to kind of put numbers with this sort of, again, we kind of had an idea of what was going to occur or what we wanted to have happen. It was just a matter of getting the numbers to show that that's exactly what we wanted to push through in terms of, number of lanes and sidewalks and crosswalks and things like that. So to answer your question, I think, from my understanding, is the 3 lanes that you're talking about is the 1 lane that comes off of the 24 northbound ramp, and then the 2 lanes eastbound that merge into one. That all kind of has a singular confluence just west of where the Shell gas station is. So again, our hope with this is to carry that 2 lanes on Route 106 all the way up to the intersection. And that even includes just the through lanes, because as you know, there's already that exclusive left turn lane onto Crescent Street, we would certainly want to maintain as part of this project and also extend the amount of queuing space as well, just because that will be, or would be under signal control under this scenario. So we would want to make sure that we have enough queue space such that the amount of vehicles waiting to turn left there weren't blocking the progression of the eastbound traffic on Route 106. So we want to make sure that, the folks traveling eastbound coming from the Easton and the Mansfield side can approach that intersection without being encumbered by folks emerging from the 24 off-ramp as well. So just from an access standpoint, and I think Rich touched on this a little bit, is just that secondary access point to the site. It's just, I believe it's just east of the Shell station now. So we're hoping to draw a lot of the Route 24 traffic from that access point to kind of keep it away from the intersection. And that's just basically to keep the volume down so that we can kind of enhance the operations at the intersection as it's intended to do. So we looked at a few different scenarios at this intersection, and through Rich and his team, we're able to acquire some property to make this happen, because there's certainly out there existing. There's a lot of pinch points that we would have to kind of go over. I mean, there's certainly the amount of restrictions that Rich mentioned with, the cemetery and the roadway alignment and some other properties, and especially if you want to fit in the pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure as well that, MassDOT likes to see when they look at, plans for, intersection realignment, signalization, and I know that, the town owns this particular piece, but if you're applying for the MassWorks grant, you would certainly want to show that this intersection is designed up to, the state standards, and being able to include all of that infrastructure as much as possible. So the end goal we're taking a condition that's already, already portrays a significant amount of delay for motorists in this area and making it much less congested and turning all the access and the conflict points that you see on Crescent Street and Lincoln Street right now to like a single point, signalized intersection, which I think, as Rich said, is pretty much a win for everybody involved.
Yeah. So, I don't know if we answered your initial part of your question, but the flexibility that we have to create the largest artery to move cars is pulling the boundaries down to the southern side. But even as we do that, we run into the highway, and the highway designers, which none of us are going to have a lot to say. And when they see your ability to have as wide of an artery, they're going to try to figure out how to give you that width on and off at 24. But it's actually not a developer controlled thing. It's a state DOT controlled process.
Well, that answered my question. Thank you. Next.
Two things. One is, Jeff, if you could hit, yep, thank you. We were getting some feedback from your side. I just want, can you guys all hear me? Okay? Okay, good. I want to make sure that there was one clarification from a question that Ms. Anderson asked and that Rich, you attempted to answer. In reference to the MassWorks grant, it's a competitive bidding process. So there's obviously going to be more requests than money that is available. Each grant request is going to be scored by MassWorks team. And when they do their scoring, they're looking for certain elements to it. One of the elements they're going to look for is, do you have a shovel-ready, larger commercial project that's always going to score better than a lower one, that is also going to bring in jobs to the region. So Rich's project is going to give us plenty of points because he's looking to invest $35 million, plus also bring at least a couple of hundred to potentially 300 jobs to the region. In addition to that, I made an amendment to the contract because we have a proposed 40B project that is on the other side of 106. So even though it wasn't immediately tethered to this program, the reality is it's close enough where we're going to be able to pick up points from it. So not only is it housing and residential, it's also affordable units. In the third part, although the lowest score is in reference to open space, so we also added the part about the sports complex going in on Lincoln Street. The reason I say all that is because if we do not change the zoning, and therefore Rich cannot go forward, as he appropriately said, the grant is still going to be reviewed and may be approved, but we will have lower points. This project should score more points. So we're going to check almost every box by having a large commercial-ready project that's going to introduce jobs to the area, plus residential. If this doesn't go through, we would still get the residential component, potentially still qualify, but it would be a weaker application. And the last part to that is, through this process, we can only align Lincoln and Crescent Street because the land is being purchased, i.e. the Dempsey property. I don't know, because I've never said this to Rich, but my guess is that because I'm sure he has a contingency built into the purchase and sale agreement, is that if this were not changed to industrial, he cannot go forward on the project. My guess is he doesn't buy the property. The town would then have to enter into negotiations with the Dempseys and to be able to purchase it at that point to make it go forward. And again, MassWorks is going to look at that and say, well, what if you can't? Where do you get the money from? You'd have to call another town meeting. You know, you have to secure the funding. So it creates more question marks. It weakens the application. So again, to answer your question directly, without this changing, can we still go forward and potentially get the grant? The answer is yes, but it's a much stronger application with this project than without.
Is this a grant that we can use in conjunction with Complete Works or Complete Streets? That may be a question for Chris, actually.
So Complete Streets is always going to be tied to the schools.
You're muted, Chris. I think Chris is talking. I can't
Oh,
tell.
let him go.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It is, Complete Streets is going to be interested in what's going on close to the schools. I didn't hear the beginning of your question though, Meredith.
Oh, I was just asking if the grants could be done together. If we get one grant, is it going to take away from the other? Is there a way that we can marry these two and apply for both grants? Or I'm just wondering what the impact is.
We're in the middle of a complete street grant right now, and the chances are, even if we applied next year, we wouldn't get the next round because they're gonna swap off to another community. It may be several years before we get another complete street grant. So I think it'd be a possibility, but I don't think it's realistic right now.
Okay. Thank you, Chris.
You're welcome.
Anthony?
So I don't have any questions. I've had a chance to read the traffic study. I completely agree with Hugh, Chris, and Bill's feedback. I think it would have great impacts to 106 and the Lincoln Street, Crescent Street intersection. I think this is a much better plan than the originally planned Derby Street, Rentham Outlet type development. A lot less traffic, and it's a lot easier revenue. There's a lot less calls for police or fire response to industrial property like this, opposed to a Derby Street type. A lot fewer inspections, just a lot easier and a lot less traffic. That's all I have.
Okay. So I have a few questions. Just stepping back a little bit, maybe it goes to the traffic study. And I'm not sure Meredith's question was answered 100%. So what exactly happens to the portion of 106 in front of Shell? When the traffic comes off of 24, is that area being widened?
I'll answer as clearly. So the traffic study and Man's conceptual ideas all meet best engineering practices. So with the given land that we were able to show him to play with, and if you really get close and study some of the overlays and understand what's going on this plan in particular, I think when it blows up it might get too blurry, but this pushes the sidewalk area, you can see it clearest on that one building on the left side, to the north as far as humanly possible. If you can see that sidewalk designation, the crosshatch, is not laying over the existing sidewalk, it's pushed into those right-of-ways that the town controls. On the south side, we have effectively pulled those further inwards, allowing for a wider throat. So I'm gonna answer your question by starting there. As you run towards 24, and if we had to pull up Google Maps and do it, you have your on-ramp on the north side, and you have your off-ramp coming up on the south side. None of us can play with that area because it's either DOT right-of-way or what we found as a pinch point is the cemetery wall on the north side is a place we didn't want to start contemplating laying out re-internment of people. So there's a pinch point there, but I don't think it means we won't be able to carry this volume all the way to the on-ramp. But there are rules and regulations that we haven't gotten involved in with the state because we haven't presented anything to the state to start talking about what they want to see. But in short, I believe, and I'll let Chris answer the technical, it is plausible to get this two-way movement as close as safely possible to both the on and off ramp. But we haven't explored that because we know that's the abyss of state DOT, and they do what they tell us what they will allow the town of West Bridgewater to do in improving this road, as well as a developer like me.
So, I mean, it just seems to me, I think I understand what you're saying is that because as the traffic moves closer to the new Lincoln Street, there's a wider area there, that will be flowing more smoothly, therefore the traffic behind it should move more smoothly.
Yeah, and that's the whole report, which
yeah.
I'll make fun of engineers because they're smarter than me. It's all technically there, and some of the charts are probably the best to point to, he might be able to point to a few pages earmarked, but they talk about the success of traffic in, movement to grades. And so basically, the existing condition with no lights offset is an F, just like, some of us in class. It's an F. And so when we even just take existing east-west movement without any striping and we align Crescent Street and Lincoln and make a signal, some of those Fs move to D, even C, without any discussion of what the DOT is or isn't allowed to do. It's like literally unclogging an artery. We would love, I think, speaking for the town, we'd love to see DOT adopt that and as wide as we can keep that and not have to transition, because of the pinch point of the cemetery, the longer people can stack and still have left-right movements and forward without waiting for someone to dart across from Crescent or Lincoln, the better it's going to perform. So what the report ultimately says is if nothing ever gets developed on our land, just by doing this, everything gets better. And when we put our development on this intersection, there's no impact to the new intersection because it's so much better than the current condition. So, it's really just a matter of distance and space. So there could be a point at which the sidewalk it gets contemplated on this plan on the south might disappear. It might end if DOT needs their on-ramp to have a safe transition, so it might stop. You never know. It's up to DOT to tell us that. I was surprised to see that there's actually a crosswalk on the north on-ramp. If any of you have tried to cross that, I did. It was scary. But the sidewalk by the cemetery, there's literally a crosswalk to get onto the bridge to go across to the west side of 24. It's not striped. There's no delineations. You don't know it's there. That's probably very, very unsafe condition today.
How long before we would know more specifically what 106 would look like there? I mean, what I'm asking this is because we're talking about whether or not we want to approve this to go before a special town meeting. And I'm hearing, I'm interested in the project, but I'm hearing a lot of we're not sure.
Oh, well, I'll answer that. I mean, we don't own the road, control the road, or can engage DOT and submit, as a private developer, improvements to say, hey, let's engage the state DOT system and start designing a roadway, okay? And so that's whether this project gets approved or not, and you do get a mass grant. The amount of work that has to go forward to just design the road and get state acceptance and the process thereof is going to take off very regimentedly through the process that's laid out by Mass Works, not by the Bartolo and not by the town of West Bridgewater. So if at any given time when we privately, with our funds, released this design study, we weren't going to be able to put a safe infrastructure in, even conceptual, then this discussion wouldn't be happening, and I would have told Bill and you, hey, it doesn't look like any realignment is even going to meet a minimum of safety requirements to build in the state of Massachusetts. So we've gone up outside of the norm here and provided at our expense the design concept that not only is being submitted with your MassWorks grant, but it's feasible. And when people like Jeff and his team say it can happen, then we're behind it because we know it could be developed. But then the process of designing roads and getting state DOT input, and are you doing sidewalks? Do you need to add a bicycle path? All of that process goes through. Your input from the town of West Bridgewater may be, I heard, complete streets. We're very familiar with that in certain municipalities. And sometimes when you have bicycle and then you have pedestrian and then you have certain widths, you don't have enough room. And certain conditions have to be, taken into consideration. So we, as a proposer for rezoning request, can only go so far. So we're not wishy-washy. We can't read the mind of DOT until somebody officially submits plans for them to review and approve.
Okay. I guess more specifically, what I was looking for is this is what we have planned, and we anticipate it could be approved by DOT, and then this is a plan that if they would only accept the bare, or permit the bare minimum, this is what we'd be looking at. But that's okay, I understand.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I
anyways,
think
moving
that-
on, sorry, did you want to say something?
Sorry.
No,
Oh,
go
I
ahead,
think
please.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you go ahead. It's so hard with this type of
I
communication.
look at all the mute buttons, apologize. No,
That's
I think it's really the town themselves, a town, taking this kind of out to a high level, is going to have a feeling of what they really want to see. And I think the realignment, having intersections, having the ability for pedestrian movement on the south side are all really great. State DOT is going to look at it, and they're going to weigh in, and then everybody's going to merge and meld and figure out what they can do and what they can't do. But what we can say with pretty strong authority, it's physically possible, both from land that's been purchased or controlled by us, as well as talking to the Shell station owners. They would love, I mean, I'm not speaking for them, I don't want to be taken out of context, but they would love to know exactly how far into their property the town of West Bridgewater is looking to improve, which you do have some buffer right-of-way control to develop there. They're looking to understand where that line is so they can draw and develop off of that line, knowing that they're going to have a nice new pretty roadway there. So to me, it's really a really good thing. These type of things can die a long time ago just by the way it just doesn't lay out. It doesn't work, or you have to go buy something that you don't own, and it takes years to procure that. So this is feasible, and I think DOT has a lot on their plate, but my guess is with the Mass Works for sure, they're going to be supportive of fixing this traffic problem. That does affect their ramping, it does affect, the 106. So.
All right. This is a question that's been asked many, many times, and I know the answer to it. But I'd like to hear it from you. Why not look at a dedicated entrance from Route 24? In other words, a ramp directly from 24 onto the site, versus even having to come onto 106.
Well, it would be a dream for a logistics company, and they would probably buy it from me in 3 seconds if I could get the state to do a ramp into the property. There's no chance this property where it's located with the current, Route 24 northbound exit would ever be able to win a private ramp. It would be a private ramp off of a state road. It's I'm sure plenty of developers and cities have tried to, get them to spend the money and appropriate the money because it's their road to get it into the site. The other problem with it is once you come into the site, you still have to exit, and so you're still, kind of what goes in goes out. You're still going to be coming out on the town roads to get back onto the highway. So we'd still be dealing with the intersection issue, but because of where the ramp configuration that currently exists there today, we're not dense enough to even have any one of these super speed ramps in there. I will point out, and it's on the picture that's on the screen right now, where that car is just behind the, and I think this is what Chris was speaking to, and it's something I just want to point out to the board. Where the Shell station sits today, and there's a little car parked there by that tree, there's a current right-of-way, a 60 or 80 foot right-of-way dedication into our property. And if allowed by both the town and the state, which I think that town were approved by right, but the state DOT might have an issue with this, any type of incoming traffic to our project, we could, and you can see it on my site plan, pull it into the property before it gets to the Lincoln and Crescent, the Lincoln realigned intersection. And so if you go a slide or two back the other way, Lorna, you'll find it's on our master plan. That is really cool. It's kind of a nice bell and whistle. Oh, wow, what's that? I like that. Yeah, you see that little drive right there. Yes. So the ability to get into our property there allows for our impact to the roads to be lessened. I'm not saying everything will go through there or not, but we could do it. If I was a trucker coming up off of 24, or a box truck, or FedEx, or Amazon Sprinter van, I'd take that right in there before I sat in traffic waiting for the lights to change. So it's a little, I call it the pressure relief valve. It would never be able to get back out onto the road and take a left. You can see the yellow delineations
Right.
that's thrown there. So it would really be a right in, right out type of right of way, but the right in would help the functionality of the intersection.
And did you say you are considering that in your project?
Yeah, it's as of right, that comes with the land, and it's in our master plans, which is the piece of it. So we'd like to have it. We're not saying that it's required to be functional site. It just will help reduce traffic, any type of impact traffic on the Lincoln Street coming from the 24. So I want it for sure, and I have the rights. It's not like Shell can take it away from us or anything. So we designed it into our project as I sit here.
I mean, that will help, because even though there's this design to help the traffic flow better, regardless, this project's going to create more traffic.
It's going to create trips, that's for sure. I mean, right now you have a fallow ag property, but it's zoned commercial, and I think everybody on this call knows this. What was originally contemplated was a 400,000 foot entertainment and commercial, which is by right today on the zoning, and we do those throughout the U.S. The amount of trip traffic and impact to this intersection, if that project were to have been built, I mean, and again, it wouldn't be today, there'd be some sort of signal, but they didn't have the land to realign it. It would have been a disaster. And I mean a disaster not from the developer standpoint. You would have thousands and thousands of generated trips a day out of this property, and that's as of right. You know, if I close with Hacienda and want to build a shopping center, it's an as of right use today. So the industrial logistical warehouse facility that I have can house quite a lot of people, or can house less. I think all of us want that balance, right? We want to have as sophisticated a tenant as possible that has enough job creation that we all get excited about pointing to this as a great incubator for an opportunity for jobs. At the same time, you could have a very low job, you know, it could be a sort facility that only has 75 people in there. And most of those, and I don't want to get too far off of logistics and what's happening today, but a lot of you guys probably have empty boxes with smiles on them in your trash can. A lot of those deliveries that you're getting are in personal vehicles, or they're in, you know, Sprinter vans. So I don't want anybody to maybe overthink that traffic that's coming out of this is going to be, you know, 55-foot semis all day, all night. We just don't know that. But I know as of right, this development reduces what could have been a 15-fold amount of traffic going in and out of the current condition that you guys have today. So whatever gets developed there is going to produce someone coming in and someone coming out of it. So you, by approving, or at least getting your vote out and allow the town to vote, an industrial opportunity, I think you have the least traffic impactful use that you could probably have, other than leaving it as agriculture.
I don't disagree with you on any of that. The little strip mall you showed a picture of, could we go back to that? Thought I saw there was a, yeah, I thought like it said fast food QSR.
Sure.
Well, it's just that there was that pink box that was on that page, but it's just, yeah, you can go to our master plan.
I forget where I saw
For
that.
that one.
Scroll back to the beginning.
Well, yeah, you can scroll backwards. See, right there, keep going.
Right there.
Right there. So, right now, it's zoned, and Hugh is a technical expert on this, of course, but this whole property is zoned business. And that's from the edge of West Center Street all the way to the end of the property that you see master plan. So, we're not bringing or trying to bring fencing, screening, industrial use, physical warehouse out to the edge of the intersection. So the best use along the 106 corridor and at the intersection of Lincoln and West Center Street is some form of retail. We know retail is good, if not better, than most developers in the country. The 2SR is quick serve restaurants, so those are your fast foods, those are your Starbucks drive-throughs. We have not engaged or are focusing on the details of that parcel yet, but it will be some sort of, I think one of you told me a year ago that McDonald's was trying to go at one of these parcels. We don't have any programming figured out, but this retail, working within the parameters of what's required by the town of West Bridgewater planning and zoning, would be brand new, that type of retail.
Okay, and one last question, the, what's, with Dempsey's, I thought the village barn was part of this project, am I incorrect? Was it just the house out there?
Just the house.
Okay, so the village barn stays?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Well, it's a good question. I think everybody should understand something that's it's been a long road to try to figure out how to do this. Once we started doing the design and figured it was good, the town wasn't going to go off and procure the land to make it happen. So we took the initiative to negotiate with Paul DeAngelo's assistant a purchase price, and then we started laying out on that parcel. Currently, we have a purchase agreement, just like the one with the Halcyotis family, to buy the Dempsey parcel. One of his clear conditions is he wants to be able to still operate and maintain his retail. And not getting too technical, but through some of the road planning, we have to make sure that he still can retain an ingress and egress that meets the town's requirements to keep operating as a retail permit area. My opinion is it will, but I don't want to speak for the town until they see some real engineered plans. But the good news is at a high level, the way the roads lay out, we were able to leave him most of his parking, and he's going to have a brand new signalized intersection next to his retail facility, which should greatly increase the ability for a customer to get in and out of his property. So, but it is a separate parcel that's not part of our purchase.
But one of the things I was hoping to see, which I don't see, and I'm disappointed in that, is the sidewalk going all the way down to South Allen, especially because we are building the fields there in the future. I understand what you mean about a sidewalk going to nowhere, but again, we are building a athletic field there.
No, the sidewalk to nowhere was the discussion about the sidewalk going past him. I don't control the ability, nor am I going to design something, but that's more in the, if we're approved and then we're going through it, if the town put on our development, and I'm just saying it, the need to put pedestrian sidewalks along the properties that we own and control, I would not have any problem. We don't have any issues with that whatsoever. We would put that in there. We don't control that big rectangle right there, and the road design is where we stopped any type of effort. We didn't work our way down Lincoln Street, which we will with planning if we were able to get approved for zoning.
So the sidewalk would end right at the end of this development? There's an existing sidewalk there, Dave?
There's nothing.
There's no sidewalk?
There's nothing.
No.
So
There's no sidewalk on either side of Lincoln
Yeah.
Street at all.
So we'd have a sidewalk that ends at the
Right
end
at the
of
Lincoln
this
Street, right
development?
at the proposed field stuff.
Okay. And last thing, I'm sorry,
No.
I know you had something there. What exactly when were we planning to have a special town meeting for this? How soon in the future?
So that's what will be, if you would like to see this project go forward, it's next on your agenda.
Okay.
And so we would call it, right now in conversations, is that we'd be identifying September 21st as the target date. So we're prepared for that date, so that would be the date that if you're inclined to go forward and trying to have the town accept this change of amendment in the zoning, that would be the date that we would be proposing.
Sorry, Meredith, did you have?
I'm sorry, I had one last question that I just thought of. What happens if this grant is denied?
Did you say it's the MassWorks grant?
Yes.
Well, then we're all gonna have to we all, meaning the people I have and whomever else wants to join, sit down at the table and figure out what we can and can't do and how much improvement the project could take on. And if we have a tenant, me personally, I would drop back to the previous discussion on finishing up the design on the road as far as what we will and won't be able to do with control of right of way, and then price that and then figure out if we can get a tip in place. And we may have to wait until we have a tenant in place to set that tip, because that's law. And then we would take on that developer requirement, and the town would repatriate us through the tax incentive financing. That's right off the top of my head. Other things that could happen at the disposal, but probably not with one, of the town would be you could issue bonds, you could do all types of things. But there's no guarantee, as I think the question is, that they're going to give it to you. The good thing about it is you got it in time, and the town will hear if they were successful in getting the grant by the last week of October, first 2 weeks of November, somewhere in there. So it's imminent that that's there. If it's not, and I'll just take it from my side of the tube, and everybody would probably agree, unless the road can be reconfigured, the development's not going to move forward, so I'm not going to get approval even if the zoning was changed. So the road needs to get fixed to have this development move forward. So we'd be back to the drawing board and how to get it funded. And I'll offer this up, we're not going to develop, even the zoning got approval, and whatever happens, we would not develop this project and try to make people take a left onto 106 to get to 24, we'd never be able to operate the project. So we as well need that intersection fixed. So we'll figure something out.
So in closing this, Bill, Chris, Hugh, are there any negatives? I mean, you spoke a lot about the positive to this, and we all know at some point this land is going to be developed, and it could be far worse than this. And I think anything we think might be far better is probably unrealistic. It's not going to happen. What immediate concerns come to your mind? Well, that's a good sign. No one's saying anything.
There have to be negatives, though. To every positive, there's a negative.
Bill, if you're talking, you're muted. Bill, can't hear you.
Am I unmuted now?
Now we can hear you. Okay.
All right, good. I would tell you that over my years on the Board of Appeals, I've looked at many things that have been proposed to go in here. None of them made sense to me, and there was going to be a real impact on the town in a lot of other ways. To me, and I said it before, I believe this is the best that the town could ever ask for. The way it's being proposed, the way the mass grants, and to get the intersection squared away and that part of 106 squared away. I don't see any negative. I really don't. I just don't. I would tell you that we have Shell has been on our agenda for, I don't know, 6 or 8 months now, waiting, and we go to move forward. No, hang on, because they found out this was coming, and they want to try and do something with this that will improve their area also. So they keep asking for extensions until we find out or do something here that they can then move forward with, whether it's working with Rich or redesigning their area. So they're on hold. They're sitting there waiting. You know, they don't want to get a permit for a setback that won't work if they go and do this, and then we go and move the road. So they're sitting there waiting. I heard just the other day that a lot of bridges on Route 24 are going to be replaced over the next 3 to 4 years. I don't know if that's true or it isn't. I just heard that. So maybe if that's going on at the same time, this whole thing gets fixed. If Mass works and DOT find out that we're doing this, and that's one of the bridges to get replaced, maybe they come and work with us on this and put the bridge in and do the whole intersection all at once. Now, I don't know that for a fact. I'm just telling you what I've heard. That's the plan. Those bridges have been there since the 50s, so I would imagine they're probably getting ready to be replaced. And
Hugh?
that's all I can say about it. I think it's just a great thing for the town.
Thank you,
Bringing in
Bill.
nothing but revenue. Okay?
Hugh, any?
I think this is probably the best thing we could get, other than leaving it as farmland, but that isn't going to happen. Something is going to happen here, and this is about as good as you're going to get out of it. As far as, whenever you do anything, it's going to be some negative things. During the construction of it, it's going to be some negative things, but when all is said and done, we're going to have a road that goes through there that's going to be 2 lanes each direction. We're going to have lights so that people can get in and get onto Route 106 and up there and get off of it, be able to make turns there. And we're going to get tax revenue out of it. I think it's pretty much a win-win situation. But you asked if it's any negative. Yeah, during the construction there'll be some negative, but whatever happens there is going to be, and if nothing happens there, we've got negative things going on every day because the traffic just isn't working, just doesn't get through there with those 2 lanes. And when we're talking here, we're going to be doubling the road. So if we don't do anything, there's a negative. So we've got to do something, and we're doing something that in the long run will be I think be very beneficial for the town.
Thank you, Hugh. Chris?
Denise? Denise, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, so of the 3 possibilities, industrial, commercial, or residential, that could be developed again, industrial would be the lowest impact for the community. Obviously, like you mentioned, residential, commercial or shopping would be huge impact with traffic. This will be the lowest impact. The road is a disaster, as Hugh says. To get the Mass Works grant to be as efficient as it can be, this project will help that. It's really a good opportunity, I think. And yes, there will be some struggles, and I think there'll be some things that we have to address as we move through it. But if we can get Mass DOT to work with us on the off-ramp, I think we could really have a very successful project here.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
So at this point, we would need to take a vote.
Yeah, so at this point, first under your warrant for business, under 1A, special town meeting. So if you are inclined to want to see as to whether or not, one, either the townspeople want to entertain making the zoning amendment, or you're just in favor of it and you want to try to make it happen either way, then you would take a vote to set a special town meeting date, which we would ask you for September 21st. Obviously, if you don't want to place it in front of the town, or if you're against the project, then you would take a motion to not set a special town meeting date, and the process would die at that point. So really, the next step is how you would like to go forward as a board.
Okay, so I guess it just makes sense that would be an all-encompassed vote as to setting a special town meeting. Because if we're not setting a special town meeting, that means we're not moving forward with the project.
That's correct.
Okay. So is there a motion?
Is there any issue with doing the week after?
There is. The reason we picked that date was because the moderator was not available on September 28th.
I'll be out of town, but I'm glad to make the motion for September 21st.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
So then, since we set the special town meeting date, if it's okay, since we're on special town meeting business, then what I would ask you to do is to vote to open a special town meeting warrant. We have already pre-printed the warrant based on past practice, this past meeting, we did it at 6 PM. If you don't want it at 6, you just have to make it as part of the motion. So right now would be vote to open special town meeting warrant, and I just need clarification that it would be at 6 PM, 7 PM, or a different time that you would prefer.
Okay, is there a motion for a time?
I'm just checking
I'm not
my
gonna be there.
calendar.
What day is
Monday.
it? Monday?
It's on the 6 is okay with me.
Okay, so, we need a motion to open the special town meeting warrant
And set it
Yeah.
at 6 PM.
and set it for 6 PM.
All right, I make a motion that we're going to open the special town meeting warrant, and we're gonna set it for 6 PM.
And I will.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that passes unanimously.
Next on the agenda is you would review and vote on articles to be placed in special town meeting warrant. The one article is this zoning amendment. Mr. Hurley is the one that wrote it. I tweaked it just a little bit to do some language. I have forwarded it over to town council. He has not done his final review yet, so which is customary is that I would ask you to vote on the article, to place it on the town meeting warrant, and make it subject to final review by town council.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That is the only warrant article that we would be placing. We did send out an email on Monday to all department heads, just to inform them that if there was something critical or vital, that they needed done at town meeting business to let us know. We received either no feedback or feedback saying they needed nothing. So with that said, I would then ask you to vote to close the town meeting warrant.
Make a motion to close the special town meeting warrant.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next is that we only have one article, so you would approve the motion. The motion is the article. The only difference is it says move. So you would vote to approve that motion. You would then vote on what the board's recommendation to town meeting would be, whether you're in favor or against. And then we would assign a reader. Because it will be moved by the planning board, because the zoning board of amendment, then I would be recommending that it would be Mr. Hurley as planning board chair.
All right. I'll make a motion to approve the motion and with a recommendation from the board and assign Hugh Hurley as the reader.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
And then you would just take a vote that you will sign the special time meeting warrant. It's already been prepared for you, and after the meeting, you'll be able to sign it.
Well, we appreciate your time, and the only thing I guess I can say in concluding this is the fact that although we've approved it to go to special town meeting, that in essence just means we're giving the town the opportunity to vote on this. There were some things in the plan I was, again, disappointed in seeing, but what we see at town meeting is what we'll see, and we'll go from there. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
And
Thank you very, very much.
I do need that vote to sign the special town meeting
Oh,
warrant.
I'm sorry. Okay, is there a motion to sign the special town
So
meeting
moved.
warrant?
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Voted unanimous. Appreciate your time. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Night.
Thanks, I'll see you.
Bye, Bill.
So next on, your next appointment, which was scheduled for 7:30, is Miss Christy Dean, or you can move on to B, whichever it is that you prefer, but it is past 7:30, 8 o'clock at this point.
Okay, is Miss Dean available?
Yes, I have to text her to just join. She is on standby.
You wanna
Should
move
I
on?
have stopped that to move to her meeting, or no?
No, it's not a public hearing, you're good.
Do you want to start with C while we're waiting?
Are you texting her as well? Ms. Pierce?
Well, yeah, I told her Marianne 7:15 and Christy 7:30, so they're both kind of just on standby at the moment. So I texted Christy, we're ready. You want me to tell Marianne we're ready too?
Christie's on.
Marianne is.
Board of Assessors.
She will be the Board of Assessors,
Oh.
a part-time secretary.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's the next one. Okay, is Christy on?
Hello.
Oh, we see and hear you.
Oh, you do? Because I can't see myself. So I've never done a Google Meets.
Okay. Can you see?
Okay.
Can you
Oh, I see you guys, so that's all that matters.
Okay. Hi, welcome.
Thank you.
David, do you want to give us a little
Sure.
brief on what this is?
I can. So, at the beginning of August, early August, I think it was around August 6th, is that the board received an email, I believe it went to Lorna, but that came into the staff, requesting to put a diverse little library, which would be a kiosk of books for diversity or specific to diversity. And it said in the initial request that she had already spoken to Mr. Iannatelli and that she had met Mary over at Friendship Park and that she was looking to put one at Friendship Park, that she had 2 kiosks. So I think the spirit of it was, I'd like to place one at Friendship Park and another one somewhere else in the town. She had recommended that it could be War Memorial Park, it could be down where we call Lions Park at the center of the town, or it could be anywhere else in the town that the board may want to look at. I was leaving for a couple of days. I asked Lauren to do a little bit of homework on it for me. I came back, I reviewed it, and as you know, we get at least a dozen requests every single year that I am responsible for whenever somebody wants to use town property. So, you know, look, I'm willing to say that I wish I would have spent a little bit more time on it at that point, but the reality is that my automatic gears were kicking in, and I said, this has got to be part of the policy, then I'm going to review it. I looked at it, and my honest opinion is that because this is an educational kiosk, is that the right place for it to go should be at the library. So I asked Lauren to send her back an email and inform her that we weren't going to put it at War Memorial Park or anywhere else in town, but that we could put it at the library to please reach out to Miss Ellen Snowy-Bush, who is the director of the library. Christy received the email back. She was disappointed because it had been rejected. And she also posed a question, which was key, was that she also posed a question as, why was she sending an email off to the board and an individual was making the decision? So rather than having Lorna send anything back, it was 9 o'clock at night, I was at home, I wanted to get an immediate response back to her, so I then responded to her at that point. And I explained that because it's educational in nature, I don't want to put additional kiosks at War Memorial Park. I didn't make the decision for the Girl Scouts one up at War Memorial Park. That was prior to when the policy went into place, allowing me to make those decisions. So again, I'm thinking at that time, this falls into the policy that had been addressed by the board. I didn't want to have it at War Memorial Park or anywhere else that wasn't an educational facility. I did think it made a lot of sense to have. Whenever we could have more educational materials in town, I think that that's wise. And therefore, let's put it outside at the library, and that way it's still accessible 24 hours a day, and it's at the appropriate place. That's my opinion. She sent back another email. She had some additional questions. And in my attempt to send back, what I did was I took the policy because I want to address Ms. Dean's immediate or direct concern is, again, why was I making that decision? And, you know, the reality is I've got 40 balls in the air at any time. And so when I looked at it, I read the policy, I started to spend a little bit more time, and I actually spent a considerable amount of time looking at it. I started saying, wait a second, this really is going to be more of a permanent structure than a temporary structure. And whenever I sign off on anything for the town, it's always in reference to temporary issues. For example, a road race or a parade, or someone wants to have a birthday party at the gazebo. I sign off on all of those. And as I started to work through it more in my head, I said, this really is a better decision for the board to make. I communicated that back to her, and therefore we have set it up for this evening. So I hope I captured everything. I may have missed one or two little things, but I hope, and generally speaking, I captured it. So I think the request is, I think she would like to have one at Friendship Park, and I think that she would like to have one somewhere else in town. I believe that she has 2 kiosks. And I've spoken my piece. I thought that it belongs at the library. but I also, after reviewing the policy, there should be a board decision, because in theory, it could be there 100 years from now. And therefore, it's the Board of Selectmen that should make that decision, not me. So it's before you for your consideration. And we asked Ms. Dean to be here, so that way she could speak to it as well.
Okay. Well, Christy, we apologize for the delay in getting to you, but we had a major project ahead of that. There was quite a few questions, so we do apologize for keeping you waiting. So I understand, I think we all understand a little bit about some miscommunication. So let's talk about what you want to do and why.
I would like to do that, but I just do have to speak real quickly that the communication, that was not how it went. So I just want to be very clear about that. I got an email back that said your request has been completely declined. Not you can put it at the library. Not you can put it that it said we are not interested in authorizing any more free little libraries. So if I were anyone else, I would have said, oh, okay, I guess this is done. But it felt wrong to me. Something was not right. So I reached out to the people I had worked with, and they were like, oh, we never even heard about it. And I don't see how this could reasonably be thought of as a temporary structure. It goes in the ground. It's not a birthday party. So something there is missing to me that as a resident worries me, that if I weren't, pursuing this would have just been squashed. And I've been working on this for 2 months. And a lot of the community has been sending me books and very supportive. And it was just, we're not interested, sorry, in an email, was very upsetting to me. So I just think that should be heard. And I don't buy, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but I understand there's a lot on people's plates. This is a crazy time. I'm sympathetic to everyone's crazy lives, but that's not an excuse to have this handled the way that it was. And I'm new to this town, and I hope that's not how things are handled regularly, that then you can just squash it and say, oh, sorry, I made a mistake, I didn't realize something in the ground is not permanent. Like, that's not good enough for me without an actual explanation of why. Because now it seems like we're backtracking. No one ever said you can put this at the library, but no, it was, sorry, you're declined. So I just want to make that clear. My request was initially, do you disagree, David? Because that's how it went.
Okay, I'm not trying to argue, but if we look at the initial email from Ms. Carroll on August 25th, the third sentence says, we appreciate your request and efforts, after he says it's been declined, and suggest you reach out to the library directly to discuss other available options of showcasing diverse reading materials in conjunction with the library. That was the spirit of what I was saying.
So I gathered, talk to the library, maybe they can order diverse books at the library. It didn't say anything about putting my little free library anywhere. So if
I can interrupt for a minute, please, and I really don't want to continue this conversation in this context. The email did recommend talking to the library about it. There was clearly miscommunication. None of it was an intention to push you off, Christy. It was, what I read into it is, no, we don't want it there, but maybe at the library, talk to the library.
No, it said we don't want any additional little free libraries in town. That's what it said. It says
right, okay. And that's a good idea. But enough about that. As far as there was poor communication. But let's talk about what you want to do and where and why.
Okay. I would love to put one at the new Friendship Park. I think that would be a great spot. It's going to be bustling with families. Just so you know, I'm a resident here. I have 3 little girls, and I've been very happy here. I was looking to do something nice for the community, and everyone's been very involved. I thought that planning of that playground looks beautiful. It would be a great new place for people to come and see it. Obviously, I'm open to other suggestions. It's just something that I think would add to this community. And everyone has expressed support of it. So that is my request. That's been my request since the beginning. If we could put one at Friendship Park. And if you're interested in another, I have one. If not one, I'm happy if we could put one in town. I just think it would be a nice free thing. I paid for it with my own money. I'm not asking for anything. I just think it would be a nice resource for the town. I'm just a little upset that it's been so difficult to do this.
Okay, and what type, explain the Little Free Library a little more. I read a little bit about what Sarah Camia did in Arlington, but I'm not sure you're looking to do the same thing.
So physically, what does it look like? Is that what you're asking?
Well,
It's,
when the Girl Scouts came in to do their presentation, you know, I think they brought in a demo or a picture and explained what they wanted to do, where it would be placed, what it would look like, who would be filling the Little Free Library.
I did put an email that requested photos of it and dimensions. I don't know who that went to.
Yep.
I sent along dimensions and photos of the free little library that I have in my garage. It's I can't remember the dimensions off the top of my head. It's very similar to the one that's at War Memorial Park. It's actually a little bit smaller than that one. It's a small box. Contains books. It kind of sits on a mailbox post, like a 4x4 post that would go into the ground. And it's registered through the Little Free Libraries. And it's a community-run thing, and I'd be happy, obviously, to curate it and make sure it's filled with books, but it's from the community, works together, that's the point of it. So you go, you put in a book, you take a book, and it's just a way for the community to work together, to bring awareness to voices that we just don't really have access to in this town because of our demographics. And as a mom of a mixed-race family, it is something that I care about. And I just think it's a nice, peaceful way to bring awareness to voices that are different from our own, and a nice addition for the community. So that's what it looks like. Someone had asked for pictures of it. That's what it looks like. And it's filled with books already from our community that have been mailing them to my house.
But are you saying that this would just be a diverse little library? It wouldn't be open to the public to add any books they wanted to?
It's open to anything, but it is to bring awareness to diverse voices, not just black and white. It's called diverse, so black, indigenous, Asian, people of color. It can be different cultural things, different histories, different traditions, dances, anything. There's a plethora of books that I know our children are not seeing regularly on the regular bookshelves. They're just not. I have 3 little kids. And it's just a place to prioritize different stories. Obviously, anything is welcome, but it is something to bring awareness to something that is an issue I see that I don't know how anyone doesn't see. This is not a political statement. It is bringing awareness to different voices. I don't see any negative in that.
So what did you think about the consideration of having it at the library? I mean, they're right next to each other.
Well, if it's at the library, I don't see what's the problem with putting it at Friendship. That way, it's near a playground where people are playing and with their families. If you're going into the library to get books, you can already go get books at the library. So the point of this is creating a library in a different part of the town.
So the point of it, from at least my perspective, and then I'll ask you to join in as well, and feel free to ask questions, was that it keeps the educational material at the library. Looking back at when we approved the little library at the park, I'm sort of regretting that decision now. I was new on the board, and it all sounded good and nice at the time, that the Girl Scouts were going to have this, everyone was free to leave books there, the books were free for everyone to pick up. But realistically, that's town property. And who's going to maintain that little free library? And really, is it something we should have allowed to begin with? And it made me stop and think, maybe I should have thought more into that. It was nice to do for the Girl Scouts. It was very nice to do. But at what point do we start to say, okay, no, you can't put something on town property? Today, it's the little free libraries. Well, what if the Boy Scouts want to do a project and they want to place that at town property?
Well, if the project is adding to the town, I don't see any issue with that. To answer your question about who maintains the Little Free Library, if you go onto there's an actual Little Free Library website where you can register your library, and it has different links to discount some books, and you can kind of designate yourself as the curator to make sure it looks nice, that it's filled with books. You can do little drives to get books, so I have volunteered to be that person if you need someone to do that. I value living in this town and I want it to be a nice community, and honestly, if this is a town that is going to say no to everything, even if it's a nice thing, I'm really rubbed the wrong way. I don't understand that. What's next? What is political or wrong about a little free library with free books? Just so you know, my daughters and I, we walk to War Memorial every week and take a book out and put a book in, and it's a wonderful thing. There's nothing negative about that. And I see people at it all the time. So that would be a shame if you said no to that. It's a wonderful thing for this community.
So knowing that you're getting a significant use out of that free little library, why would, similar to what Arlington did, what Sarah Kamya did in Arlington, is she added diverse books to that library. She added to the already existing little libraries. Unless, correct me if I'm wrong, but she didn't build new little libraries.
So this is a movement actually that's happening all across the country in many communities. Some people are, because their towns are very supportive of this cause, are very supportive to saying, yes, use these free little libraries. They also have dozens of them in most towns, not one. So having an additional free little box library that is, yes, it would be more geared toward this. I guess my question is, what is the offensive piece of this, is what I'm missing. I would clearly like to hear what is offensive about a diverse library.
There's nothing.
I'm not missing something.
I'm sorry, could you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. There's nothing offensive about a diverse free library. I'm just wondering, if it's a project that maybe, it was Girl Scout oriented before, and if we're going to, I guess I'm stuck on this. I don't like the idea of continuing to add things at public places that are going to be permanent. I'm also torn where it's the Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts wanting to do things like this. But now we're going to start having residents come forward and say, I want to build this here. I mean, I guess if it was something you were working with the Girl Scouts on, or working with the Boy Scouts on, or an organization such as that, maybe, I guess I would lean more towards understanding it, because then this is an organization that's going to live on to take care of it, versus residents starting to put or build things onto the schools, the playgrounds, and other places. But that's pretty much all I have to ask about. Anthony, Meredith?
I hate to say, I don't want to say no to anyone who wants to volunteer something. I'm a huge proponent of education. I've never met Ms. Dean, but I know she did message me about this project initially when she first saw the designs for the playground. And I tell you, the response online has been huge. People are very excited about this. Whenever the communication happened that it was respectfully declined, I received a lot of messages from people in town asking, how could you deny this? I mean, I'm a mom of 3 young kids, and I definitely understand sitting at a playground and, with 3 kids, 2 will want to play and 1's not going to want to. So what do I do with that kid? If I don't have to leave the playground, I can go right here to this book, I can sit down with that 3rd child, and everybody's happy. I'm not sure where the issue is. If people are using the free little library at War Memorial Park, why wouldn't we want another one? We want to support education. We want to support and make sure children have access to learning about different cultures, about diversity. I mean, if this was diverse or not diverse, I would still be in favor of it, just because I think children should be read to. Sit down and read a book. When a kid is sitting at the playground and bored, that's going to be something that's readily accessible to them. So I think it would be great at the playground. I think it would get a lot more use at the playground than if it were at the library. There aren't many people that are going to sit around outside of the library and look for a book, whereas at the playground you're kind of tied there. With young kids, I can't go anywhere. Even walking over to the library, my kids are going to freak out. It's not that far, but depending on your age, it can be. The library is not open all the time. I go there on the weekends to the playgrounds with my kids. Though some libraries are open on Saturdays, most not at all on Sundays. So I think it's a fantastic idea. And I don't want to say no to someone who wants to volunteer and has put so much energy and effort into it with the support of the community.
Anthony?
So I'll start by saying I don't find it offensive at all, but I will say my preference would be that there would only be one right now, that we leave opportunities for similar structures to go in public places open for others to do. Your efforts are greatly appreciated. I think the library would be a good location. I think that the Lions Park in the center would be a great location because it's been known to like incorporate diverse aspects, but my only concern would be the traffic or encouraging people to walk there or park there. I'm okay with having it at the Friendship Park. I just want the DPW director to have the final say on the exact location in the park. But that's it for my thoughts.
So, and again, Christy, I hope you understand what I was saying. It's not about me objecting to a nice thing. I'm just more concerned about at what point do we say no. So, with that being said, I'll call for the vote.
I'll make a motion to allow the placement of the Free Little Library at the Friendship Park for the final location to be determined by the DPW director.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you,
You're
Christy.
Okay. We're going to move on to ratify employment. David?
Yep, so as we know, in the Board of Assessors, we had at one time a full-time person, we had a full-time person and a part-time person. The full-time person left the organization. The part-time person then was promoted to full-time, creating a position open in the part-time position. So we're not adding staff, all we're doing is backfilling an available open spot. We, per the Board of Selectmen's hiring policy for all of your collective bargaining employees, is that we posted the job. We received in about 97 applications. I get to be able to make the final pick, so I create an advisory committee. The advisory committee was made up of Steve McCarthy as chairman of the Board of Assessors, John Donahue as the principal assessor, and Linda Torres as our HR director. They screened the 97 applications. They interviewed 12. They brought it down to 2 finalists. I interviewed the 2 finalists, and Ms. Pierce was the person, after doing a background check, Corey check, reference check, and all that, was the one that is determined to be the best candidate. So she is available, or is about to be available, just so that way you can meet her.
She was here.
I just texted her my phone. I have a service in here, so
Oh,
she will be joining shortly.
I was wondering what you were doing.
So once she comes on, you know, I like to make sure that the board has an opportunity to see the face and say hi, so you know who it is. And then the spirit of it is that there's a checks and balance, so that way I can do all of the work and it's not done in a public setting, and make sure that we get the best qualified candidate, hopefully. And the checks and balances to make sure that I'm not hiring my brother or my best friend or something like that. So with that said, the ratification vote is in by the Board of Selectmen. So once she is on, she is on now.
I am on. Can you see me?
We can see
yeah.
you.
Oh, good. Okay.
Hi, how are you, Marianne?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. So welcome to West Bridgewater, I believe. We're getting ready to say to you. Would you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay. I've lived in my home for 37 years. I live in Bridgewater. I've worked for the Commonwealth for 23 years for Mass Emergency Management Agency as a planner with Pilgrim Station, and Pilgrim Station stopped producing energy last April. So my job went away, and it was a good time for me to retire. So I retired on my birthday, which was last week, and I'm really excited to do something part-time and just to kind of supplement my retirement and be close to home.
Congratulations on your retirement.
Well, thank you.
Okay. Well, I don't have any questions, Anthony? Do you
No,
have
no,
any?
pleasure to meet you and wish you the best of luck, and hopefully one day we'll meet in person.
Great.
Yeah, absolutely. I look forward to meeting you in person. No, very exciting.
Okay.
So at this point, by the way, happy birthday. None of us knew that. You know, we under employment law.
It's over.
Happy birthday.
It's over. It was a big one, and it's over.
Oh, well, welcome to 30. So with that said, I would just ask for ratification of the vote to hire Mary Ann Pierce as the Assistant Secretary, or Principal Secretary for the Board of Assessors.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimously approved.
And she will start on September 8th.
Well, we apologize for keeping you waiting. We had some meetings that ran a little over. Thank you for your time, and we look forward to someday meeting you in person.
No worries. Thank you all very much.
You're welcome.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night, thank you.
Okay.
Cool thing. We
Vote
should
to
have done that
appoint
first.
election workers.
Yep, town clerk always has election workers. However, it's Mass General Law that she identifies who they're going to be, make sure that they're interested and available, and then once she does, the Board of Selectmen then actually take a formal vote. So I would just ask you to take a vote, and it would be for all the people that have been listed before you in your packet.
A motion?
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimously passed. Vote to add 24-hour heavy commercial vehicle exclusion for River Street in its entirety to the traffic rules and orders of the town of West Bridgewater.
So-
Finally?
Yes, so we started this process many months ago. It is a long process, but we have to follow it. And so Mass DOT has, after we did we had to do a traffic study and all those issues, and then now that it's been approved through Mass DOT, they require one final vote from the board, saying that you are going to amend your traffic rules and regulations, so in perpetuity, this is now going to be engraved as part of our rules. We will forward that off to Mass DOT. Mass DOT will then send us a permit, and then we will be able to post the signs.
Okay, so we need a vote. Is there a motion? Any questions? Any discussion? Any questions?
Nope.
No? Okay,
I'll make a motion to add 24-hour heavy commercial vehicle exclusion for River Street in its entirety to the
Second.
traffic rules.
Any discussion?
Nope, second, sorry.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So what did you mean, number 2? Okay, vote on Michael White's vacation carryover request.
So, as you know, we've seen quite a few of these this year because under COVID-19, a lot of people are going on vacation. So he's allowed by bylaws, the department head to carry over up to 10 vacation days, 10 of which he has not used. And so I will ask for a board vote to do so.
Did he only have 10 days left?
He only had 10 days left.
Okay, is there a motion?
Yes, so moved.
Second?
Second?
Any discussion? Questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Approved? That's approved.
Hmm.
Okay, well, I'm getting tired. It's 8:30 already? Okay. Appoint Board of Selectmen representative to the Brockton Area Transit Authority.
So we just carried this off because we tabled it at our last meeting. I did do a little bit more homework and research and verified that they do normally meet either the third or fourth Thursday of every single month. It's normally at 11 o'clock. Mr. Marrera had been our representative in the past. I don't know the exact number. He was always really good about his meetings, but it's during the day. It's hard. Even, Eldon was not that far, but he couldn't make it to every single meeting because he was working too. So we don't do a lot with BAT. I'm not going to, I don't want to diminish the role and say if we don't fill it, it's a huge loss for the town, but I do recognize that all three of you work, and it's not like you're that close and you have a lot of pressures, but if you want to appoint somebody, we can send your name, and if you're able to make the meetings, great, but obviously there's a difficult time where it's during the day at 11 o'clock.
Does it have to be a selectman?
That's my understanding, yes.
I would not be available at 11 o'clock on the 3rd or 4th Thursday. I already have meetings scheduled every other Thursday at that time.
I would
I
be
couldn't make it.
available as well.
No, well,
Oh,
I mean, the other thing is, boards change.
Right.
So what we'll do is we'll send a memo and we'll just say that unfortunately, based on the time of the day, we're unable to fill it. However, if you do make any amendments to your meeting dates, because they may. As those board meetings change over, boards change over, maybe it's difficult for them, and who knows, maybe it becomes a Tuesday at 5 o'clock. So, we'll let them know, we'll communicate it to them, and we'll see what we see for feedback.
Do they typically email you when there's a change in date or time?
I have never received an email from BAT. Have you? Oh, you received it?
Yeah, they've never changed it. They just send reminders.
Is there any detriment to our town by not having someone?
So again, I don't want to diminish the role. I can't definitively answer the question because I've never been there. However, I will say, to my knowledge, there is not a lot of Brockton area transit bus routes in West Bridgewater. So I don't think that there is, but if I'm wrong, I apologize to whoever right now is looking at the TV saying, Dave, you're wrong. But to my knowledge, no.
What's that, the park and ride at near Barrett's? Is that?
I don't think that's related to that.
That's
Correct,
not
that's related.
related, no.
That's related to MBTA.
MBT, okay.
Well, if it changes, let me know. I can always try. I'm closed during the day. It's just the Thursdays I'm already tied up at 11.
We'll send a letter. Thank you.
Vote to ratify the library union contract.
Yeah, and we've agreed, if you don't mind, the library union contract and the police union contract almost mirror each other. The police, both of them are 2% this year, 0% the following year, and 2% in its third year. The police, the only other caveat was in their contract or MOU was that if another union received greater, they would like to be able to rebark in the contract, understandable. The library union had a couple of other little language changes, but nothing really substantive. And it falls in line with the leadership that the board has addressed, that we know that we're going to have decreased revenue next year under COVID. We've already asked our department heads to understand they will have to take a 0 next year to rewrite their contracts. We've done the same thing with our unions and our negotiations, and 2 of them at this point have agreed. I'm still in active negotiations with the others. So at this point, if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them, but if it's acceptable to the board, I think we could vote to ratify both the library and the police union contracts at the same time, because they basically mirror each other.
Any questions,
Nope.
comments? Meredith?
Nope,
questions?
I'm good.
I'm good, okay. I'm going to recuse myself from any discussion or the vote on the library contract because of conflict. I work for Teamsters 653, and they do represent the West Bridgewater Library Union workers.
So I apologize, I forgot about
separately.
that. Yeah,
All right.
please,
Do you
I'm
want to make
sorry.
a library motion? Do you want to make a library?
Sure. I make a motion to ratify the library union contract.
I'll second, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, and I'll make a motion to ratify the police union contract.
I'll second the motion. All those in favor? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sorry about that. Okay. Approve the meeting minutes of July
So make a motion. Oh, second?
8th. I didn't even ask for the motion.
Sorry.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oh, I thought I already ayed. Sorry. I moved it. Aye, the whole thing.
All right, that's a unanimous vote. Accept the meeting minutes of August 5th for review.
So
Consider
moved.
motion.
Well, I wasn't gonna say anything to you, so if anyone wanna make a
Is there
motion.
a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Okay, communications and reports from boards, commissions, and town officials. I don't think we have anything, do we, David? Any correspondence at all? No? Correspondence from the public to determine a course of action. Is there anything received from the public? No? Public comments period. There's no public here. So we'll move right to the town administrator's report.
Thank you. So just again, I've always given everybody a COVID-19 update. You know, we're still, the governor has declared towns to be critical or not critical or somewhere in between. West Bridgewater's in the white, which means we're a not critical town. That's based on the amount of cases you have based on your population. Right now, we have 3 active cases. They're only a couple of days from being removed, so it drop us down to 0. And most of the summer, we're at 0. So the town's done really a good job. The second thing is in conversations with the COA director, is we're gonna look to try to start to do some programming for seniors on the fringe. We can do some things outside, keep the group small, do some lunches. So we're working through that process right now to again try to get back to some normalcy. Next is grant applications submitted for River Street sidewalks. I think we've done a really nice job over the last couple of years. We've done some nice commercial infrastructure projects in town, and this is another one. Through the Shared Street Sidewalks Program, Chris Iantelli and myself submitted an application for $130,000. It's going to be for River Street. Again, it would be entirely paid for from the state if approved. There is some specifications that have to be met. That's why we picked it. It wasn't like we said, hey, that's where we just wanted to go. But it has to bring together a business district to a resident, to an open space area. So that was our center of town, say CVS, down to War Memorial Park. So it was an opportunity. We may not get it, but it didn't cost us anything to try. I think again that the last handful of years, we've made an earnest attempt to keep on doing sidewalks. All 3 members of the board really want sidewalks. We've been funding sidewalks at town. So I think this is just a nice fit package. So we went for it. So we'll see what happens. We'll know in a couple of months. We applied for $130,000. Hopefully we receive it. Just an FYI to the board. West Bridgewater Public Library is going to actually open next Tuesday. It will be limited. There'll be plexiglass. It's only going to allow 10 people in. You know, there's going to be certain protocols. However, again, an attempt to get back to normalcy. So again, just an FYI to the board. And it'll be limited hours. It won't be all the same hours as it was before. And they obviously have a cleaning regimen put into place as part of the protocols. Last thing is a couple of FYIs. The Attorney General's office has approved the Finance Committee bylaw. Whenever we do bylaws at town, they must be approved by the Attorney General's office before they take effect. I don't necessarily always put it on the agenda, but because it affected this board directly. Remember, you used to be part of the Finance Committee,
Yeah.
but this board always was part of the Finance Committee by its simple reading of its original bylaw. So again, I thought it was important to let you know that it has now dropped from 9 members to 7. The selectmen are no longer members. It's been approved by the Attorney General's office. Next Friday, there will be a ceremony for 9/11 at our Memorial Park. Again, we secured funding about $60,000 2 years ago at town meeting. That's come across really nice. So we will have some dignitaries there. All of you are respectfully being invited to be there. The ceremony will start at 8:15. And again, it'll be a tribute to the unfortunate events for September 11th. And the last is just another last update, is that only at your last meeting did you approve the contract for I.W. Harding. We've wasted no time. Both Sean and Chris have done a really nice job to make sure that everything got mobilized for the site. And as a result, Harding is already out there. They have started construction this past week. The construction that they can do right now will take somewhere around 5 weeks. It may take a few more weeks longer, depending on weather and some other factors. But the idea is to try to get it done what they can within the next 4 to 8 weeks. Keep in mind that when we order lights now, that it takes 6 to 8 months lead time. So they will pour all the bases for the lights. So the lights will not go in until spring. So we won't have a fully operational intersection until the spring. But in the meantime, we'll get all the work done, widening the road, doing whatever paving we can, adding the sidewalk down to the COA. All of that hopefully will be done between now and early fall. That's my report.
Any questions?
No.
Discussion?
I'm excited by all the sidewalks. This is
Yeah.
good.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Yes, I was just going to ask for a
She
motion.
didn't ask yet.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
There is.
Is there a second?
Yes.
Okay, all
Seconded.
those in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, and that concludes the meeting. We are not going into executive session. The meeting is over.